This is part 6 of Federalist 78. It's going to cover the last two paragraphs of the text. There is yet a further and weighty reason for the permanency of the judicial offices, which is deducible from the nature of the qualifications they require. It has been frequently remarked with great propriety that a voluminous code of laws is one of the inconveniences necessarily connected with the advantages of a free government. To avoid an arbitrary discretion in the courts, it is indispensable that they should be bound down by strict rules and precedents, which serve to define and point out their duty in every particular case that comes before them. And it will readily be conceived from the variety of controversies which grow out of the folly and wickedness of mankind, that the records of those precedents must unavoidably swell to a very considerable bulk, and must demand long and laborious study to acquire a competent knowledge of them. Hence it is that there can be but a few men in the society who will have sufficient skill in the laws to qualify them for the station of judges. As you can see, he says there will be a lot of precedent cases that have preceded the ones that come in front of judges, that these judges have to be familiar with. So you want people to serve as judges that are knowledgeable, that have had time to be familiar with how the government wants them to proceed in cases, also be able to know all these cases that have happened in the past. Because of that, we need wise and judicious people to be elected as judges, especially federal judges, to be able to serve the country in the long term. That's another reason that on the one hand you want experienced, wise people to run for office as judges, and at the same time you want to make sure that when they leave so much money behind, whether working privately or for somebody else, and they go into government service, it's out of the love and honor that they love of the country and the honor that they want to earn, that they go and become judges that are independent of any political groups or factions. So go back to the text. Hence, it is that there can be but few men in the society who will have sufficient skill in the laws to qualify them for the station of judges. And making the proper deductions for the ordinary depravity of human nature, the number must be still smaller of those who unite to requisite integrity with the requisite knowledge. These considerations apprise us that the government can have no great option between fit characters, and that a temporary duration in office, which would naturally discourage such characters from quitting a lucrative line of practice to accept a seat on the bench, would have a tendency to throw the administration of justice into hands less able and less well qualified to conduct it with utility and dignity. In the present circumstances of this country, and in those in which it is likely to be for a long time to come, the disadvantages on this score would be greater than they might at first sight appear. But it must be confessed that they are far inferior to those which present themselves under the other aspects of the subject. Last paragraph. Upon the whole, there can be no room to doubt that the Convention acted wisely in copying from the models of those constitutions which have established good behavior as the tenure of the judicial offices in point of duration. So here he says, we have actually replicated the system in Britain because we know that system is really good. We give the judges, the federal judges, the authority to serve during good behavior. Remember in the last piece, I said it used to be during king's pleasure, but in early 1700s, they narrowly changed that. And it was no longer the king's pleasure, it was the two houses of parliament that could actually get rid of a judge. So he says, this example of Britain is pretty good, and we should learn from it, and we have learned from it and applied it into our Constitution. So, upon the whole, there can be no room to doubt that the Convention acted wisely in copying from the models of those constitutions which have established good behavior as the tenure of their judicial offices in point of duration, and that so far from being blamable on this point, their plan would have been inexcusably defective if it had wanted this important feature of government. The experience of Great Britain affords an illustrious comment on the excellence of the institution. And he's talking about one of the cases he's talking about is that a person named Sir Charles Pratt, who was also known by Lord Chief Justice Camden, he handed down a decision that regarding the liberty of the British subjects against intrusion by government into their houses and homes. And this had echoes of what eventually became part of the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution. So make sure that you watch, you go to C-SPAN's channel, and I've mentioned C-SPAN quite a bit. They have a subheading under courts, the U.S. courts, and there's multiple lectures about decisions that have been handed down, about the courts, the judiciary, how it works. They've got a program about 12 of the most important cases that have been decided in the U.S. Supreme Court. All of these are great resources for you to learn more about the founding, the judiciary, and I encourage you to do that once you go through the first reading of the Federalist Papers, maybe the second reading, because I think it's good if you do read it more than once. So I'll stop here, and we will see you while recording and reading of Federalist 79.